Hey, welcome in. Well, I saw this headline, and it really made me feel like just ranting and raving. So I don't know if we're going to actually rant and rave, but we're going to complain about this for sure. Now here's the headline. Aerial Powers. Iguodala's tweet makes WNBA players feel less than. Now, you've probably never heard of Aerial Powers either, and it turns out that's because she's a WNBA player. Andre Iguodala, who's an NBA player, complimented her. He complimented her play. He was watching one of their games. One of the, several hundred people that were watching the game, and complimented her. And it didn't go well. It was not appreciated because it was not quite the compliment that she wanted, I guess. I don't know. But, in these days, you really can't do right. In these hyper-politically correct and identity politics and gender politics and all this stuff, you can never really do right because somebody's going to be offended. And I guess it just doesn't pay to be a nice guy anymore. Anyway, let's see what happened here. Aerial Powers. 2 days after Miami Heat veteran Andre Iguodala tweeted his appreciation for Aerial Powers' play without referring to her by name. So he tweeted his appreciation for her play, but didn't refer to her by name. The Washington Mystics forward says her fellow WNBA players and women as a whole are done, quote, being marginalized. So she and her fellow WNBA players are done being marginalized. It is a WNBA, so I wouldn't hold your breath there. And, it's this marginalized, right? As if it's something that's being done to them. There's somebody oppressing them. Instead of, it's just not a very popular sport. People don't really like that. I guess that's being marginalized. So, I guess if you stand on a street corner and hold out a hat and sing the Dutch national anthem and nobody gives you any money, that's being marginalized. But anyway, let's find out what happened here. Let's see. Andre Iguodala, he said, number 23 from the Mystics is nice. So that doesn't seem very offensive to me. That seems like he's just complimenting her. But this didn't go over very well because it wasn't enough. And you find something that with these weird kind of politics these days, especially leftist politics where they use words like marginalized and stuff like that all the time, it's never quite enough. So it says, quote, NBA players more than anybody know our fight and struggle to have the same recognition, visibility, and opportunity as they do. Powers wrote on Instagram Thursday. So this was Aerial Powers, the player he was complimenting. Quote, so when you say a statement about our gameplay that was meant as a compliment, but didn't include the person's name, it takes away credibility from them and their hard work on the court and makes it seem less than. So that doesn't seem like a very gracious acceptance of his compliment. And it just seems as if this person is claiming that they are just completely hard done by for playing in the WNBA, something that I assume they're doing voluntarily. Anyway, there was a response. There was a response to her lack of graciousness. And it says, no manners. And he is correct. You are correct, sir. He's absolutely correct on that. That is no manners. This is just nasty. This is just being an unpleasant person and also extremely ungrateful. He didn't have to do that. He is bringing some level of visibility or recognition from this tweet. He's pretty famous. He's a pretty famous NBAer. And it seems to me it's not his fault that people don't like WNBA. Let's see, how much do people like WNBA anyway? Let's find out about this. And this is nothing against the players. I wish them all the best. But it's this in this one instance, you see, this is something about the culture now, which is really ugly, where for one thing, people can't take a compliment, and anything they try and turn into some kind of oppression. Let's see, earlier in this, they talk about how little the WNBA players make in comparison to the NBA players. But then we have this. It says, critics, however, argue that WNBA players earn less because the league only generates $25 million in annual revenue, while the NBA rakes in a whopping $7.4 billion. The WNBA also receives less money in broadcast rights than the NBA. WNBA teams also play 34 games in a season for about 4.5 months if they don't make the playoffs. By comparison, NBA teams play 82 games in the regular season for 6 months, while the finals can stretch this season another 2 months. So, I mean, it's really like how many games they play and all that is really irrelevant. All that matters is here $25 million for annual revenue and $7.4 billion. Hey, if you could subscribe, like, and share, that really helps me out. Thanks a lot. So obviously you're not going to be paid anywhere near as much because you don't generate as much money. Like if you could generate $7.4 billion, the WNBA, you'd be paid a lot of money and you'd be famous, right? Instead of, well, I guess not famous, I guess is what you'd have to say. But here's the thing. I mean, people don't like women's basketball as much as men's. Why is that? Well, it's because the men they're better at basketball. They just are. They're faster, they're quicker. They're better at playing basketball. And that's what people want to watch. And the fact that, you don't have the notoriety, you don't have the crowds and the revenue coming in, it's not the public's fault, or it's not the NBA's fault. The NBA subsidizes the WNBA to millions of dollars every year. It's not their fault. It's just the league just isn't as good. People don't want to watch it as much. And, this is pretty much most sports, too. With one notable exception, which is women's tennis. I mean, here you've got, I haven't paid any attention to women's tennis in a while, but you've got Sophia Kenin. Her earnings last year were at $3 million. I guess before the coup came in and stopped everything, but her earnings $3 million. Here, $1.6 million for Muguruza, Simona Halep, $1.4 million. Sabalenka, there's $1,078,000, and this may not even be for a full season. So, I mean, the thing about the women's tennis is they actually do play a lot. I think they play as much as the men, though the games aren't as long. They play 3 sets instead of up to 5. But again, that doesn't really matter because it's just that people are willing to watch them. They like watching them. So, if there is a women's sport that people want to watch, the women will get the notoriety and the money. I mean, think of the famous women's tennis players: Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Maria Sharapova. These are huge names, worldwide famous. So really the solution is maybe not to complain when somebody tries to compliment you, but maybe have a better sport, I guess. I mean, I like playing street hockey, but, it's never going to really pick up worldwide, I don't think. And that's not anybody's fault, I can't say I'm less than because, they don't want to televise me playing street hockey. And look, I never got to be a professional hockey player at all. I never got to be a professional hockey player. I would have loved that. When I was a kid, I dreamed about being a pro hockey player. Do I say no? I feel less than Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. But you know what? When it comes to hockey, I am less than. Way less than. I just am. And that's tough for me. Oh, well, I guess I'll just have to get over it. I guess that's just life. And here's the thing. People just don't like WNBA as much as they like the NBA. And I guarantee you, if there was a woman player good enough to be in the NBA, every team would be falling over themselves to sign her, just for the publicity, just for the ink, maybe for the virtue signaling. Because, there's nothing to stop. There's nothing in the rules that a woman can't play in the NBA. And if there was just one woman that could compete, they'd be in the NBA. Absolutely. Again, teams would be falling all over themselves at the opportunity. And that's if there was one that could compete, of which there are none. And I'm afraid that's just life. These guys are the best of the best. And here's the thing, again, this less than makes me feel less than. Well, who cares about your feelings? Who cares? In this real sense, in terms of basketball, in terms of being good at playing basketball, would it be fair to say you are less than? Is that such a thing? Like, just say that you're not as good. And here's the thing, in terms of basketball, just not as good. Otherwise, you'd be in the NBA. Just accept that. Don't say, makes me feel less than. Don't care about your feelings. We have to be in a world where that doesn't matter. I like meritocracies. It was supposed to, is somebody supposed to just give millions of dollars and all kinds of notoriety and fame to these people because of their feelings? No, of course not. And, here's the thing. Andre Iguodala, who was just trying to compliment, he was just being a nice guy. If he were in the WNBA, he'd be dropping 100 points a night, at least every single night. And that's just the truth. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe because they try and hide this content from you. They do try and hide it, so you've got to subscribe if you want to see more. Liking and sharing helps get around the nasty algorithm, so I appreciate that. Also on BitChute and Minds as well, which are great platforms, and I encourage you to check those out. If you just like to listen, there's Radio Baloney, the podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and iTunes and Spotify and Spreaker and CastBox and a million more. Radio Baloney, the podcast. If you look for it, you will find it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.